This past weekend, the NFL playoffs got underway, but for black coaches last week brought negative news. And once again, tough questions about the league's record when it comes to who is hired to be a head coach. Lisa Desjardins has the story.
Nick, the Houston Texans fired head coach Lovie Smith last week after a 3-win and 13-loss season that many saw as a rebuilding year. That leaves just 2 full-time black head coaches out of the 32 spots in the NFL. One other interim coach is black. This in a league where nearly 60% of the players are black. That gap has been an issue for decades. Back in 2003, the NFL adopted what's known as the Rooney Rule to ensure teams interviewed at least one minority candidate for every open head coach job. Here's what that recently fired coach, Lovie Smith, told the Washington Post last summer about being a black head coach.
And there was pressure to win, and you really wanted to, but you knew it was a lot bigger than that. If you didn't win, you're going to stop progress. You're going to knock us back a little bit. And that's pressure that I still feel. We get a shorter period of time to prove exactly who we are.
The Washington Post has chronicled this problem in detail in a series called Blackout. Michael Lee is part of the Post team that worked on that and joins me now. Michael, my first question is, why is this not only a continued problem, but it seems this is a problem that is actually getting worse in the NFL right now?
Yeah, it definitely is getting worse. Lovie Smith was, as you just said, was fired after 1 season, and the guy, came after, David Culley, was given 1 season as well. Since 2018, 5 black coaches have been fired, and 3 have been hired, and 3 have been fired after just 1 season. And I think that's a problem that really needs to be addressed. The NFL is doing all that it can, but one of the issues is with ownership, and they haven't been willing to provide opportunities for black coaches. And it is getting worse, and there doesn't appear to be anything that can change it other than the owners having a change of heart.
Let's talk about that issue with NFL owners for a second. This is not a diverse group. In fact, there have never been a majority owner of an NFL team that's been black, very few non-white owners of any sort. Can this problem change at all? You're saying it sounds like no, unless the owners change. How does that happen?
Well, I think one thing we have to look at is we look at the history of the Rooney Rule, which came in place in 2003. That was brought about through the threat of litigation. Cyrus Mehri and Johnny Cochran, threatened to sue the NFL in order to change their policies, because at the time, Tony Dungy was the only, or he had just been fired, and Herm Edwards was the only black coach left in the NFL. And so 20 years later, you wound up with the same cycle, but this time you actually have a court case with Brian Flores suing the NFL. You had a litigant. You had someone who was willing to put his career on the line and force change through the courts. And I think that's the one thing that changes the climate right now for the NFL, because they've been put on alert to say that there is a serious problem. And I think the owners have to be the ones to make the decisions.
We know that Flores lawsuit you mentioned is working its way through the courts still. This isn't just about hiring, but it also seems to be about firing as well. You mentioned that idea that coaches in the recent years, coaches who've been fired after just 1 year, half of them have been black. And here is something that you talked to another former head coach about from the Washington Post. This is Romeo Crennel, what he said about that.
I think sometimes the minority may not be given as much leeway as a white counterpart. Now, in saying that, I think if a white guy was a head coach and he was doing a bad job, he gets fired too. If you're doing, let's say, an above average job, all right? Sometimes a white guy might be given another game where a black guy might be let go.
What are your findings about the role of race versus the role of team records in firing in the NFL?
Well, black coaches are most likely to be fired after having success than a white coach. If you are a black coach who wins 9 games, you're just as likely to be fired as a white coach who won 6 games. And you're also going to be the first one to be dismissed in short order. There was some progress there around 2011, where there were 10 coaches, 7 full-time and 3 interims. And it's appeared that the NFL was moving in the right direction. But in the last decade, things have regressed to the point where now, again, you have a lawsuit in place, but you also have coaches who are expressing their frustration because there's a pool of talent that's available if owners are willing to actually hire them. And it's interesting to see where this lawsuit goes, because that appears to be the only way that could get someone to move. Otherwise, there'll just be a lot of complaints and frustration from guys who are qualified who continue to see the goalposts move.
You know, preparing for this segment, and I am a big football fan, one number popped out at me that I was surprised by. Of the 100 most watched broadcasts last year in the U.S., 82 of them were NFL games. That's staggering. Yeah. We're talking about billions of dollars. This is a huge part of life in America. So I want to wrap this up and ask you, what do you think is at stake here in this discussion for the United States, for the culture, in terms of who the NFL chooses to elevate?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, Cyrus Mehri, one of the attorneys who threatened to sue the NFL 20 years ago, he always said if you could change football, you could change America. And I think that says a lot about the power and influence that the game has on the entire country. If owners were willing to provide opportunities for minorities and actually put them in leadership positions, it might change the way people around the world see that representation. It may open up corporate America, Fortune 500 companies, to see leaders in those positions. I mean, you look at just what happened on the field. It took a long time for quarterbacks to get, black quarterbacks to get opportunities. But now the game is so much more exciting when you have a Patrick Mahomes kind of freestyling and throwing, sidearm passes and doing so many exciting things. I think one of the things that black coaches, whatever level they're on, they just want an opportunity, the same opportunity that white coaches are given. There's no proof that a white coach is any better or worse than a black coach. The opportunities, though, for them are much better. And that has to change, because there's no reason why we continue to have this conversation, and there's no reason why it can't change until the owners decide that they want to make that change. And there has to be pressure somehow, and it's either going to come through financial pressure, lawsuits, or something of that magnitude. But fans themselves, they're never going to break from the game. They love it too much. It'd just be better for the game if they provide opportunities to more people.
Big game, big season, and a big topic. Michael Lear, The Washington Post, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.